right, y'all, we're trying a little bit different of an intro today. I'm going to show myself making the drink while I talk about our stories. So, this week we're going to be talking about the Murdaugh murders. I just like that name. But along with that, we've got the Dyatlov Pass. And to go with that, we've got something called the Russian Cider. So, let's start with 1 ounce of vodka in a chilled martini glass. And then top that off with 2 ounces of Martinelli's sparkling cider. Let's give this a little sip. Let's get into our stories.
All right. Okay, let's give it a shot or a drink.
Delicious. It just tastes like cider.
Yeah, I just taste apple. I don't taste.
Yeah, me
really...
too. It's like apple juice for adults.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of the vodka to the end of it, but it really just tastes more like cider.
I don't taste any vodka in mine.
That's in trouble.
Like 2.5 shots in there.
Oh, well,
but
I did.
The little bottle of Martinelli's is like 6 or 7 ounces, I think. So I tried to stick to a 1 to like 2 ratio, but I just eyeballed it.
I think I would have preferred a sparkling cider because I think it would just give it a little, pizzazz or something.
Mine literally just tastes like apple juice, like straight from the box.
Yeah, but with this, if it were sparkling, it could be just a little bit up, a little zing with the sparkling.
Yeah, bubbles help carry the drink.
I could have made like a little sparkling water and topped it off with that, and then I bet it would be even more fun.
Be pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me about the pass. Yeah.
Yes. So, Igor Dyatlov was a 23-year-old engineering student from Ural Polytechnic Institute. He was an experienced hiker and long-distance skier. He was planning a 16-day trip to the Ural Mountains. This trip is one that had never been completed before, so the group was mapping out a good route, whatever. Igor assembled a group of 9 experienced grade 2 hikers to accompany him on this trek. And I don't know about this, but apparently, I don't know if this is a thing in America, but in Russia they have like grades. So like scuba certification or something like that, where you have to like prove that you have to do like a category 1 hike to get a grade 1 hiker.
Okay.
So there's like hikes are categorized by like numbers 1, 2, 3, getting more difficult the higher up they go.
Okay.
And so like all these people were grade 2 hikers. They were all students at the same school as Igor.
Is there a negative grading to the hiking score? Because I would maybe be a -5.
I think we'd be at 0. I don't know if it goes negative.
Okay. I'll take 0 over a negative number. Okay. All right. Go on.
So the route that Igor had mapped out was classified as a category 3 hike. So all hikers would become grade 3 hikers once they completed it.
Okay.
At the time, grade 3 was the highest certification available to the Soviet Union and required candidates to traverse 300 kilometers, which is about 190 miles. It's a fucking long distance on foot, man.
Yeah.
Even if you're skiing it,
But they're doing this in the snow. It's not like they're just doing this in like nice terrain where there's, kind of up and downhill and you can like, pause to take a drink of your water. Just sit down on a rock or something. You're in the snow, right?
Yeah, they're long
Fuck
distance
that.
skiing for this, so they're
No,
kind of
I'm
kind of a
out.
little bit easier than walking, but still, that's if you're carrying all their gear and shit. Like, yeah, it's gotta be tough.
I'm amazed at people who wanna do stuff like that. Like,
It's kind of
it
fun,
wouldn't
like
occur to me.
what Dad and I did, but now that I can drive, it's
Right.
like I'd much rather just drive my truck to the campsite and just, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Okay.
hike there with a backpack full of like a tent and, yeah.
No.
It was pretty fun though. I would do it again, I guess. A few days before the group set out on their expedition, the university. Few days before the group set out on their expedition, the university randomly added an additional hiker who is believed to have been a part of the KGB. He had he had a really weird resume, like and
Wha
gaps in his resume that are consistent with KGB members. So
Mm?
yeah,
Oh,
so
why? Why would they do
the
that?
university never told them. Been asked many times, and the university never
Really?
said. They're just like, we're
Yeah, they're
adding
not
this
gonna.
guy. So the original group of 9 hikers, they were all between like 20 and 25. So they're all college
Okay.
students. And this guy that got added was like 46, I believe. So
Oh,
just some random old guy they put with.
what?
And he had a bunch of like
Hey,
strange tattoos and stuff.
okay, wait a second now.
Older guy. Sorry,
Wait
not
a
old.
sec.
Older guy. Older
Thank you.
guy. Sorry.
Thank you for restating that because you almost got disowned.
So while they're getting ready for the hike, one of their members had health complications and dropped out last minute. I think they were
Okay.
already on the hike when it really affected him, but he just
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So he like I think on the first day he tapped out um because of some joint issues. So he
Okay.
turned back and he's the only one from the group to survive, surprisingly.
Mm, well,
Yeah,
that's
his
good that he
joints saved
didn't
his
die.
life.
Okay.
On the 23rd January oops, on the 23rd of January 1959, the group of 9 hikers set off on their expedition. However, this would be the last time their friends and family would see them. Before leaving, Dyatlov had agreed. Oh, Jesus. Before leaving, Dyatlov had agreed he would send a telegram to the college on February 12th to inform them of their succession. When the 12th came around and no telegram had been received, the family of the hikers demanded a search be initiated. But it's pretty common for these types of tough treks to go a couple days extra, but a
Okay.
search was initiated 8 days after the 12th. So on the 20th,
Okay.
the search was initiated.
Okay.
What the search party found is still a mystery to this day. On the 26th of February, the searchers found the group's abandoned and badly damaged tent. So it was found uh, like 14 days later is when they even
Okay.
found the site.
Okay.
Inside and around the tent laid all of the group's supplies, including boots, skis, clothes, and even a prepared meal. Their tent had been
Like
cut from the inside. Huh?
the food was cooked and
Yeah, it was
like,
all cooked and like set out on a plate or tray or whatever they were eating off of. It was
mm,
like ready to be eaten food.
wow.
Yeah.
I did not
Their
know
tent
that. Okay.
had been cut from the inside, and the
Mm,
footprints of 9 people in socks led in all directions for several hundred yards before disappearing, around 1,500 yards to be exact.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The first 2 bodies were discovered near a tree and a half burned fire. The bodies were wearing only underwear, and the tree next to the body had pieces of torn clothing and flesh hanging from its branches. Some of the branches
What?
were broken off and like laying on the ground next to the tree too. Yeah.
Ew. Yuck.
One of the bodies had suffered third-degree burns. However, it was determined that both had succumbed to hypothermia. But a piece of flesh missing from one body's hand was discovered inside its own mouth.
What?
Yeah,
So
I
the
don't know.
person chewed themselves,
Just
took a big
taking
old
a
bite
bite.
out of themselves. I can't
Yeah.
I can't explain why anyone would want to. Okay. That's weird.
So the other body, not the one that bit his own hand, had significant burns on one side of their head.
And this is the third degree burns that you mentioned?
Both. Yes, actually, yeah,
Both.
that was the.
Okay.
No, I think only one of them had third-degree burns, but the other one had, like, some burning on their hair and stuff. Nothing, like, too crazy, but one of them had, like, legit burns.
Mm.
The search party found 3 more bodies around the tent a few days later, one of which had a fractured skull.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, 5 bodies had been discovered at this point, the 2 by the tree and then 3 laying in the snow kind of around the tent, closer than the original 2 that were found.
Okay.
And the other 4 missing bodies were discovered buried under 15 feet of snow about 2 months after the search had been initiated.
Oh,
Each body had suffered severe injuries consistent with like car crashes and bombs going off.
that's weird.
Yeah. So one
Hmm.
body had suffered a head injury so bad that a piece of their skull was found inside of their brain.
Ooh, shit.
Yeah. So pretty fucking severe head injury. Another body that was found was missing their lips.
What?
One body was missing its eyes and its tongue, and the final body had been crushed and their rib cage was caved in. And it was determined that a majority of like the lip and the eyes missing were post mortem.
Oh. Oh, okay. So like an animal could have scavenged it.
But they were buried under 15 feet of snow.
Valid point. Okay.
But it was also 2 months after they had been found, so
Yeah.
maybe they
Maybe
weren't.
right after they died, an animal scavenged, and then there was a snowstorm or an avalanche.
Maybe.
Shit
We'll get into that.
happened. Okay. All right.
So, it was said that their injuries are consistent mostly with a bomb going off, which will also come into play in
Huh.
a little bit.
Okay.
And to make things even weirder, all of the bodies contain very high levels of radiation. And some claim that the
Oh.
bodies were in even a strange tan color. That's that's not in the official report though, but there's been people that have come out in the past years and said like, oh, a bunch of weird things were happening with these people.
Oh my God.
So a majority of the film captured by the group was collected and destroyed by the Russian government.
Of
So
course it
they'd
was.
been taking pictures of their entire journey, and a majority of the pictures were burned.
Oh God. I
The
want to know what that was.
the
Who's in that
investigation
film?
was we'll get into a couple
Okay.
these are the ones that they even
Theories.
talked about, but so
Right.
the
Yeah. Okay.
investigation was wrapped up fairly suddenly, claiming an unknown compelling force was the cause of their death. That was the quote from the report, is that an an unknown compelling force. The fuck does that mean? What the fuck? What is that?
Okay.
All right, so let's
All
look at
right.
some theories. Most credible theory, in my opinion, is radioactive Russian weapons. So, a KGB
Okay.
veteran came forward claiming that the government was testing a new bomb they carried a radioactive isotope called 5-sulfur phosphorus. And at the base of the mountain where the hikers were found, they were testing these bombs.
Oh, whoops.
Sulfur compounds escaped the body very quickly in around 3 to 5 minutes. So that would explain why none was detected in the body. But this is still a radioactive isotope, so it'd probably leave the I don't know this sciencey shit, but
Radiation.
I'm guessing it would leave the radiation behind, and the fucking phosphorus would dissipate into the atmosphere or something. I don't know.
Huh. Interesting.
That's my favorite theory. But there's a
Okay.
couple more that I found. And another theory is literally out of this world. On the day of the tragedy, several glowing orange orbs were spotted in the area by both locals who were closer to the incident and hikers that were about 30 miles away. Noticed like 3 to 4 orange glowing like lights in the sky that were heading towards that area.
UFOs.
Yeah. And one of the last pictures ever taken by the group was a cluster of strange looking lights in the night sky. It was just like a black background with a couple in like a strange pattern.
So obviously that picture wasn't burned in their mass, like destroy the evidence.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. It definitely makes you wonder if that image survived, what the fuck did they destroy?
What did they destroy?
Yeah.
That's a good question. That's a good fucking question.
That's horrifying.
And an interview with the head of the search party claimed that the tops of the trees in the area were burned. Just the tops. Yeah.
Interesting.
A little, I don't believe this theory as much, but many speculated that the Yeti may have been involved. Some of the film that was released contained an unusual mass in the tree lines that was not presently seen by investigators actually like searching for them. So who knows what
Nope.
Yeah, I don't.
Nope. I'm out. Nope. No, thank you.
The leading theory right now comes from 2019, and that's when it was started, and I believe their official report came out in 2021 or 2022, either or, but it doesn't really matter. But there's a form of avalanche that's very rare called a slab avalanche, and it happens when there's a layer of thick, dense ice, and underneath it there's a layer of weaker ice. And so it's said that when they cut into the mountain to lay their tent on a flat surface, that they exposed this weaker part, and that came down on their tent, and they had to cut their way out. But it wouldn't really cover the rest of the things that happened to their body that were weird, like head injuries, and I guess that
missing
could cause
lips,
head injuries and stuff.
It would cause head injuries and fractures and broken ribs and stuff like that. But I don't think it's going to take your lips off.
Nah, and it wouldn't.
I
Definitely wouldn't make you radioactive. That's for sure.
No.
Nope,
no, it would not.
at all.
Wow. That's wild.
Tell me about this brutal story you got.
All right. The Murdaugh murders. So this case is at the request of Emily. She specifically said, our friend Emily said, do the Murdaugh family murders. And I was like, all right. She actually asked for this a couple of months ago, and the case was still actively being heard in trial. And so I waited until everything was done, because I can't just be like, it's still in court. So it's no longer in court. I mean, there could be new hearings on it, but we'll get to that. So This is the story from South Carolina. For over 100 years, a family reigned supreme over the region. They were so well known in their area, many people referred to the geographical area as the family's country. For several generations, they had their hands in the legal arena, both in civil matters and criminal cases. Rumors regarding their negative influence had been circulating for decades. The most recent generation brought immense amounts of scrutiny when people started dying, and it appeared like the family and their influence allowed for facts to be hidden and witnesses to be coerced.
Sorry, who was he again? Why? What? How did he have power?
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. This is not a story from a country ruled by kings or queens, but from South Carolina in the U.S., where a family had such a large influence that the locals referred to it as Murdaugh Country.
Wow.
So,
Sounds like a fucking movie.
well, there
you know you're
actually
going into
is
Murdaugh Country, boy.
country. That's right. Oh, the Murdaugh family is a well-known family in South Carolina coastal region known as the Low Country. Multiple members of the family have been lawyers in the region for over 100 years. The patriarch of the family, Randolph Murdaugh Sr., founded a large civil firm in 1910, and he also served as an elected prosecuting attorney known as the solicitor. So this region is different from Oregon, where you have a county prosecutor that's just for like Klamath County or Lane County or Multnomah County. This is basically they elect a prosecuting attorney, but for this area, it's over 5 total counties. I don't know why it's different. And there's not a restriction on them having like other outside jobs. I don't know. It was really strange. And it took I'm so used to what we do here that, we have the prosecuting attorneys, they do their job, and we have the defense attorneys and they do their job. They don't commingle. But apparently in South Carolina, they kind of commingle a little bit, not necessarily defense attorneys, but civil law, which is different. So you can be a civil attorney and do like personal injuries and civil law. But then this guy was also a prosecuting attorney going after criminal cases.
So he was like sitting next to one guy, and then when it was the turn, like time for rebuttal, he'd run over to the other desk and sit with him.
No, because civil law doesn't, it's 2 attorneys going against each other, not a prosecuting attorney. A prosecuting attorney is like criminal law, but usually civil attorneys don't have anything to do with criminal attorneys in criminal law. It was a little different. So apparently in South Carolina, it's different. I don't know if that's true for any of the other states over there on the East Coast, but it's definitely different than what Oregon does. And I was like, I was really confused because no one in Oregon is called a solicitor, but in South Carolina, a solicitor is basically the elected prosecuting attorney. So basically in here, it would be the district attorney.
I thought a solicitor was someone trying to sell you like newspapers and shit.
Well, that's another if. Because, in the English language, we have to multi-purpose names and confuse the fuck out of everybody. So,
yeah.
Anyway. So the patriarch of the family, Randolph Murdaugh Sr., founded a civil law firm in 1910, and he also served as the elected prosecuting attorney known as the solicitor. Randolph Sr. not only passed down his name to his children, because there were like Randolph Jr., Randolph II, Randolph III. He also passed on his careers. So subsequent members of the Murdaugh family maintained the law firm, the civil law firm, also, and then also served as a prosecuting attorney. That elected office was held by the family from 1920 to 2006, almost 100 years. So there was essentially a Murdaugh as the district attorney or prosecuting attorney for 100 years, which is pretty wild. It is. During the entire time, the civil law firm, which now specializes in personal injury cases, also operated. So basically, the family was working on both sides of legal battles, civil and criminal, which is pretty unique. I mean, there are, like, my dad was an attorney. He did civil cases and criminal cases, but he didn't do the prosecuting side while he was also doing civil side. So it's a little different, but the family has been so influential and prominent in the region that locals often refer to it as Murdaugh Country. As with all well-known families, there are bound to be scandals. So we're going to talk about some of those scandals. In 2019, a major incident occurred involving Paul Murdaugh. So there's a lot of names. I tried to cut some of the names down because it can be confusing, but Paul Murdaugh was the son. Paul was born in April 4th, 1999, and he was the youngest child of Richard, who is also known as Alec, and I'm going to be referring to him as Alec throughout this story. Alec and Maggie Murdaugh. Paul was their youngest son. Paul has an older brother also named Richard, after their father, but was referred to as Buster. So a lot of names, very confusing, but I'm going to be referring to Richard, the dad, as Alec, and Buster, the oldest son, who is also named Richard, but he comes in a little bit later. But remember Alec and Paul at this point.
Alec Murdaugh. Okay.
Yep, Alec Murdaugh. So in February 2019, a few weeks before Paul's 20th birthday, Paul and 5 of his friends were out on the Murdaugh family boat. It was evening time, and the group took the boat to a friend's party where everyone was drinking alcohol. They actually started drinking beforehand. Paul had gone to a convenience store and bought some alcohol. Although he was not 20, he used his brother's ID. He used Buster's ID and was able to successfully purchase alcohol. So it was the evening time. The group took the boat to the friend's party where everyone was drinking. After the party, the group took the boat to a bar, because, you haven't been drinking enough, where several of them continued drinking.
Just after 1 a.m. to the bar?
Yep. So
that's
apparently,
badass. That's fucking rich money.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull up my fucking boat, bitch.
Right.
You gotta drive home in your Honda Civic.
Right. So in this area, one of the sources that I had, I think it was I watched a Netflix special. And I think it was on that special that talked about how Paul knew that there was likely going to be law enforcement checkpoints, and he's underage and he's drinking. So he was like, let's take the boat because they're not going to fucking catch us on the water.
Yeah.
So,
give you a BUI instead of a DUI.
Right.
Boating under intoxication.
So he wanted to take the boat instead of driving to this party. And apparently in that area, there's a bar right off the dock. So you can drive your boat down this river and there's a bar right there. I know. Okay,
we
smart,
need to
but
make
not smart.
a Sonic for boats where you pull up on a dock, you dock your boat, and then someone runs out your drinks and your fucking wings or whatever.
Right, there you go. Okay. Sure. But let's not bring alcohol into it because shit goes bad real fast when alcohol's involved.
I
Yeah,
think
it's not
that's a
good.
requirement for driving a boat. I think you have to drink to drive the boat. It's like one of those reverse DUI things. Like you have to blow a .8 to get the boat started,
No,
or
that's
.08, whatever.
that's not how it works.
No one drives a boat sober. What the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, well, in this case,
Especially if your dad's
they
a
should
fucking
have been.
lawyer. Come on.
Okay.
I'm driving the
Yeah.
boat drunk.
Well,
Come on.
we're gonna know. You're gonna find out real quick
Okay.
what happens with that. After the party, the group took the boat to a bar where several of them continued drinking. Just after 1 a.m., they left the bar and went back to the boat. A few of the friends had suggested getting rides home another way, like grabbing an Uber, basically, rather than taking the boat back, both because it was cold. It's February, so it's in
Mhm.
like the 50s, but also because Paul was very intoxicated. According to the friends, Paul refused to let anyone else drive the boat because it was his boat. So he was like, no, you're not going to drive my boat. Approximately an hour after leaving the bar, the boat crashed into a bridge and several people were thrown out of the boat. Yeah. One of those people thrown from the boat was Mallory Beach. Mallory and her boyfriend Anthony were sitting at the back of the boat when it crashed, and both of them were ejected into the water. 911 was called, and law enforcement soon arrived, but no one could find Mallory.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, the water was really swift in that area, and they looked for her but couldn't find her. Several members of the group were taken to a nearby hospital to receive treatment for their injuries, including Paul and his friend Connor. While in the hospital, Paul's dad, Alec, and his grandfather, Randolph, came down. They were checking on everyone, but several witnesses claim that Alec seemed more concerned with placing the blame of the crash on someone other than Paul. Specifically, Alec wanted Connor to take the blame. Paul was so disruptive that the hospital staff took a sample of his blood and determined his blood alcohol content was 0.286.
He tied
Yeah.
one on that night. I'm surprised he could fucking walk
Yeah.
to the boat. Holy
Yeah.
shit.
So for those
He was
of you who
20, you
don't
said?
know, he was not even 20. He was still 19.
Fuck, dude. That's
So
crazy.
so legal blood alcohol content didn't really apply to him because he was a minor anyway, but
That's just the MIP, I guess.
well, his blood alcohol was 3 times the legal limit for operating a motor vehicle, which also included a boat. So, yes, buoy does apply to that, boating under the influence, because, yeah. There was some concern that Paul was shown favoritism at the scene because he was never given a field sobriety test by law enforcement. He was not handcuffed for being intoxicated. They didn't make any effort to do any kind of legal thing to him. They just put him on an ambulance and sent him to the hospital, which, I mean, I kind of understand because you've got to be focused. And they knew for a fact when they got there, law enforcement was like, Mallory's missing. We've got to focus on finding this girl. So, I mean, but yet there were claims that Paul's dad, Alec, showed up to the hospital and was trying to convince Connor to take the blame. He was trying to alter the narrative of what happened because he didn't want his son implicated in this, accident. So
Yeah. He was pulling all the strings with the judges, everything he fucking could.
pretty much. And because remember, they're in Murdaugh Country, there was definitely some things that happened. So the search for Mallory continued, including the use of divers and helicopters. Her body was found a week later, approximately 5 miles downriver from the crash site. She died from drowning and blunt force trauma. So basically, they think she got some kind of a head injury and then drowned as a result of that.
Fuck.
Approximately 2 months after the accident, Paul was charged with 3 felony counts of boating under the influence. Those counts included 2 counts of involving bodily injury and 1 involving death, and that was for Mallory's death. Mallory's family also pursued a wrongful death lawsuit against the Murdaugh family for furnishing alcohol to a minor. Because remember, Paul used his brother's ID to buy the first round of alcohol and to like buy at the bar and stuff like that. So they
that
sued the
implicated
family.
him on the.
Yeah. Yeah. Although Paul had been charged with crimes, a trial date had not been officially set by the time the next major incident occurred. On
The
June
same guy?
20th. Yes, this is Paul.
Same guy's fucking it up? Okay.
Yeah.
He's the fuck up of the family?
Well, okay, so
I guess not the total fuck up, but
no,
at first
no.
it appears to be.
So he fucked up that incident, but now he's going to be the victim.
Oh.
Because, yeah, on June 7th, 2021, over 2 years after the boating accident, the father, Alec, placed a 911 call just after 10 p.m. from the family's hunting estate known as Moselle. This area was over 1,700 acres, had dog kennels, and a cabin. It was regularly used by the family, and Paul was staying in the cabin. So it was a pretty good-sized cabin. You know, it was decent living accommodations, and he was staying there. Alec claimed that he had just returned to the estate from visiting his parents and found his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul, shot to death outside by the dog kennels. Maggie and Paul had both received numerous gunshot wounds, but both had been shot with different weapons. Law enforcement began investigating the murders, with Alec's family members claiming that he had received threats. So they were saying, like, yeah, he's been receiving threats from people who, you know, maybe they murdered his wife and his son. Almost 3 months after the murders in early September, Alec, the father, places another 911 call, but this time it's because he has been shot. Yeah.
Okay.
Alec reports that he was on the side of the road attempting to change a tire for his car when someone shot him in the head and left the scene. Alec is treated for his injuries, which were reported by one source as, quote, an entry and exit wound, a skull fracture, and minor brain bleeding in 2 places, end quote. However, 2 days later, those injuries were listed as, quote, superficial, end quote, when Alec made a public statement that he was leaving his law firm to enter rehab. Yeah.
Okay, a bunch of weird stuff happened, apparently.
Weird. Yes. So this was the same law firm that had been founded by his great-grandfather. Alec claimed that the murders of his family had caused such severe stress that he turned to drugs and was seeking treatment for his addiction. Although that would be an understandable reaction for some people, the next day it was revealed that the law firm was actually looking into Alec for the theft of over $1 million.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So they talked to him about, hey, there's $1 million missing. And the next day, he gets shot in the head.
Wow.
Yeah. it turns out the law firm had confronted Alec about the missing money, notified law enforcement that day, as well as the State Bar Association, all happening the day before he had been shot. About a week and a half later, Alec learned that, well, it came out that it had all been a setup. So law enforcement found out that Alex's distant cousin named Curtis Smith was involved. Now, Curtis Smith was not just a random cousin. He also happened to be Alex's drug dealer. And the allegation was that Alec had hired his cousin Curtis Smith to shoot him.
Okay.
I know.
Super weird.
Right. So Alec admitted to the plot, but claimed that it was intended to be an assisted suicide so that his oldest son, Buster, could receive $10 million in life insurance money. Apparently, Alec believed that the insurance company would not pay on a policy if Alec had committed suicide, so he enlisted the help of his cousin, Curtis Smith.
Okay.
However, Curtis Smith's story was different from Alec's. He said that Alex had called him to meet up, and when he arrived, Alec provided a gun and asked him to shoot him. According to Smith, he thought it was a setup. The two struggled over the gun, which accidentally went off, and that is what caused Alec's injuries.
I don't know who I believe. Both
I don't know.
sound like bullshit.
Well, both men ended up being charged for multiple counts in regards to the scheme. So they were like, I don't know what happened, but you're both going to get charged for it. So over a month after his shooting and approximately 4 months after the death of his wife and son, law enforcement officially named Alec as a person of interest in the murders. Although law enforcement claimed that he was always on their radar, it wasn't made public until that time. Even though they were looking at him, he wasn't officially charged with the murders until over a year later in July 2022. We're going to get to that in a little bit, though, but we got to talk about some other stuff first. So, during all this time, between the murders and when he got charged, Alec was not just minding his own business, sitting pretty and doing his own thing. He had charges brought against him for the assisted suicide plot. Plus, he was getting some additional charges for financial misconduct. Remember that missing $1 million? Yeah. Well, there's going to be some criminal charges. By the end of 2021, Alec had been indicted for dozens of counts regarding financial crimes, and it was alleged that he stole more than $6.2 million from his victims.
Holy shit.
Yes. The charges continued to pile up into 2022. By June, he had a total of 81 charges that included money laundering, fraud, breach of trust, computer crimes, forgery, and additional crimes.
He was a real gangster out here. Come on.
He was, well, it's Murdaugh Country. The following month, in July, he was officially charged with the murders. The trial for Maggie and Paul's murders began January of this year, 2023. It lasted for approximately a month and a half. During the trial, some information regarding the Murdaugh's marriage came out. They had been struggling, shocking, and Maggie had seen a divorce attorney and was looking into their finances. She was staying at the family's beach house, which is about an hour away. The night of the murders, Alec contacted Maggie, asking her to meet him at Moselle the family's hunting lodge. He messaged a friend. She messaged a friend saying that Alec had asked her to meet at Moselle so that they could travel together to visit his father who was dying. She reportedly told the friend that Alec was up to something and that he was acting, quote unquote, fishy, but she agreed to the meeting anyway. She would soon be dead. Alec claimed that he had been visiting his mother, who was suffering from dementia at the time the murders occurred. One of the key pieces of evidence was actually a video that Paul, the victim, had taken approximately 15 minutes before the estimated time of his murder. The video did not show Alec, but his voice could be heard in the background, which negated his claim that he was at his parents' house.
Shit.
Yeah. There was also evidence of blood spatter on Alec's clothing, but defense expert witnesses claimed that the spatter was not conclusive regarding Alec having been the shooter. I don't know.
So
After all testimonies,
if he didn't take that video, then it would have not been.
Well, Paul, the victim, the son, was the one that took the Snapchat video. So if he hadn't taken that, it probably would have been excused, like, okay, it was somebody else. But he was there 15 minutes before the estimated time of death. So they're like, you clearly were there. Yeah. After all testimonies were heard, the jury convicted Alec of murdering Maggie and Paul. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility for parole. Of course, he maintains his innocence and he has appealed the conviction and the sentencing. But we're not done there, because the murders were just the tip of the scandal iceberg. So we're going to go back a little bit. In 2015, a young man named Stephen Smith was found dead on a country road due to blunt force trauma. But some sources claim the injuries and the body positioning were inconsistent with him being struck by a vehicle. So they're not quite sure exactly what caused his death. But Stephen had gone to school with Buster Murdaugh, the oldest son, and there were rumors that the two of them had been in some kind of a relationship and that they were trying to hide it.
Okay.
In 2018, the family's longtime housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, died after a fall at the Moselle hunting estate. The initial story was that she fell down the front steps after being tripped by the dogs. But no autopsy was done, and her death was listed as natural causes, which some people are now saying, why would you list a fall, even if it was a legit trip and fall? I don't know, but her
Get those dogs in court right now. This little Shih Tzu killed my maid.
Right. Damn those Shih Tzus. Her death played a part in the fraud charges that Alec received because he collected $4.3 million from his insurance company after the death as an insurance claim. He filed a claim against himself and collected money. The settlement was supposed to go to her sons. But
he sued for the maid dying?
Yeah. So he turned in a claim to his insurance company for the maid dying, and the insurance company paid out over $4 million. Supposedly that was going to go to her sons, but they never got the money. So he kept all of the money.
What a fucking scumbag.
They ended up suing him, and they received $6.5 million regarding the fraud in the long run. But
unlimited money glitch.
Yeah. Law enforcement has since... Yeah. So they have started investigating her death as being more than just a slip and fall. And they exhumed her body. So they're still looking into it. During the murder trial, Alec admitted to a heavy opioid addiction, claiming to have taken over 2,000 milligrams per day, which is about 60 pills a day
Oh
of
shit!
oxy. Yes.
Oh, of oxy. Oh my gosh,
Of
that's
oxy. Yes.
the strong stuff, right?
Yeah. By April 2023, Alec was still facing 102 criminal charges relating to drugs, computer crimes, fraud, and financial crimes. Some
Dude's
of
just
those
racking up
crimes,
charges. He's
right.
collecting
Oh,
them at this point.
yeah, they were just throwing them at him. Yep. He admitted to some of those crimes on the stand during the murder trial, but the outcome of those cases is undecided at the time that we're recording this podcast. So I haven't been able to find anything about those other charges other than the murder trial is set, but he's obviously appealed that. So, you know, who knows
Shit.
what'll happen with the appeal. But that's how it stands right now.
I don't think his appeal's gonna go too well. Sounds like they got a lot of
Wow.
evidence on this fucker.
Yeah, it's wild. It's
That's
wild.
crazy.
Yep.
And it's crazy that it all happened so recently. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like a majority of our stories happen like 30 to 50 years ago.
Right. No, this is
That's crazy.
current. Yep. This is current. So, do you have a chaser to lighten the mood?
Yes, my chaser is a podcast recommendation for everyone who likes aliens and that sort of
Oh.
topic. It's the Sean Ryan Show episode with Dr.
Oh,
Stephen Greer.
that's
Yeah.
interesting. That one. Yeah.
Sean as SHAWN, Ryan.
Oh, yes.
It's super interesting. It's about a doctor who's in charge of informing governmental officials about UFOs, that like studies and alien. He just knows everything about UFOs, and he doesn't like a. I think it's a 2.5 or 3 hour podcast, something like that, and he divulges some very interesting information. It
Yeah.
might be one of my favorite podcasts I've ever heard.
It was very interesting.
Yeah. Do you have a not recommendation? Do you have a chaser for us, Mom?
I do have a chaser. And that chaser is that I have been very excited that we're making plans for our trip to Vegas in June. And I am glad that it's like getting closer and closer. And the closer it gets to our trip day, I'm getting more excited because it's going to be a big, fun trip that we're going to take with a bunch of friends and we're going to do cool stuff. We're looking at going to the Mob Museum. We're going to do a bar crawl. We're going to visit Area 15. We're going to do some other stuff.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
super duper. Most of all, one of the things I'm most excited about is that the weather is going to be warm there, hopefully, crossing all our fingers and toes, because it's been so cold here lately and we've had such a long winter. I'm super excited to be going to the pool and hanging out in the sun and hanging out with friends and doing cool stuff. So, if any listeners out there have any other recommendations of fun stuff to do in Vegas, please let us know, because Deklan's going, we're going. It's going to be a big group of people. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're super excited for that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's for sure.
Yes. Vacations are always awesome.
Yes. Alrighty. Well, I enjoyed hearing about that crazy motherfucking lawyer.
That's a wild family. Could you imagine being that fancy and having that much influence? I don't have any influence.
When I thought you started this story, I thought it was going to be like an old boy situation, but not as
Well,
fucked up.
It's 100 years worth of old boys in this one community, and they just kept using their influence to further hide their shitty things that they were doing. So,
True.
but it backfired because now he's in prison. So,
yeah, which is good.
yeah, for sure. I mean, you murder your wife and child, you should go to prison.
Yep, definitely.
It's fair trade. Yeah. But thanks for telling that crazy story about the Dyatlov Pass. I didn't know some of those details, so it was really interesting to hear that. Thank
Weird
you.
stuff going on there, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I love you, Mom.
I love you too, bud.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, friends. Thank you for supporting our podcast. Please share our show with your brutal and bizarre friends. Give us a boozy follow on your favorite podcast platform. If you're feeling extra generous, we'd appreciate a 5-star rating or review as well. But maybe do that sober so all the letters are in the right place.
You can find all our contact information in the show notes. We love hearing from you, and if you're interested in helping us stock the bar for our future boozy episodes, you can find our Patreon link in the show notes as well.